Halving in 7 days, money printer still going absolutely out of control. This is like a cryptocurrency moon boys wet dreams, baby.
Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let.
Well. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. It is a actually bright and sunny Tuesday morning over here from Helsinki, Finland. As always, want to be wishing you the best of the best and the happiest of the happiest, which someone actually asked me yesterday, why don't you wish us well anymore? Well, I do. It's just I do it at the end of the streams typically. But hey, why the fuck not? It's free to do, and it can only help, I guess. Anyways, on top of that, we have plenty to talk about with good old price action today. I want to follow up on yesterday's bouncy bounce, which we saw. We did not hit actually specifically the lower term target, but then again, that the triggering effect for that was never met, and the bounce emerging from it, the first bounce target of 9,000 has been hit. So what next is essentially going to be the focus of this video, especially on the lower term timeframes. But because the lower term timeframes are really starting to coincide with the medium and higher term timeframes, there's actually a really big interest in the more proximal movements of Bitcoin, of which the open interest accurately named once again back above 700 million. So we could really have a chance here to confirm the next sort of phase in the market cycle. I want to see this shoot up about 80 million to 100 million plus on the next move, and that should certainly, I shouldn't say certainly, but that will do a damn good job in really confirming the next sort of phase of the market cycle, which can really initiate some very powerful moves, which we'll get into a little bit later. Anyways, on top of that, all the top end dashboard metrics are more or less the same. By the way, this is on the Krown Trading application, which can be found for free, by the way, at app.krowntrading.net. And what do we have here? We have the Bitcoin dominance still headed north, going up a little bit from yesterday to today, which we have been bullish on for a while. And I do believe that this is on the precipice, or probably already has initiated those higher term targets up into the 70+% region. So most alts going to be getting hurt versus Bitcoin on this next move, very, very likely. However, if Bitcoin goes up versus the US dollars, which it is kind of hinting at a few moves right here and right there, then I would expect alts to go up versus US dollar. However, just not as much as Bitcoin. So they will likely lose on the ratio, but not versus the dollar. A strong Bitcoin is good for all. A strong tide lifts all ships, or a high tide lifts all ships, or a tide is a ship. No. What the fuck was that, man? All right, so I don't edit my videos, so I can't edit that out. So I'm just going to sound like a goddamn moron. Anyways, what's different, man? What's different? Anyways, crypto fear and greed index actually taken down a little bit from yesterday to today. Still kind of tying into the analysis here, but really the interest is with the open interest. So let's go into the price action analysis charts, and we'll start off with the 2-day. I will go back down to the lower term time frames soon. I typically want to avoid higher term time frames during the week. I'm gonna save that for the weekend's playlist titled long term analysis. But start off with the 2-day right here, just because it is of interest right now, and it is going to really align with the lower term time frame analysis too. The 200 simple moving average, which is this white moving average right here, has accurately gotten a lot of the phase shifts in Bitcoin going back to the genesis. Is it perfect? No. Is any tool perfect? No, not really. But it does work more or less for getting a long-term bias. And what's relevant about this is anytime that we've been above it, generally bullish. Anytime that we're below it, generally bearish. The slope of it further confirming that fact. So whenever it has a positive slope, we're still kind of, biased towards the long-term upside. Whenever it has a negative slope and Bitcoin price action is below it as well, then that is biased towards the downside. See that it gets it pretty damn well. Again, not perfect, but we're talking about macro areas here, going back all the way to, well, the genesis as we just spoke about, and now bringing it towards our further time right here. And what's significant about this at the exact moment in time is that this will, I believe, be ending tonight. Yes, it is. So we get a new 2-day dildo later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. The reason why this is relevant is because, as you can see, if it ends here or higher, at anywhere above 9,000, essentially, it's going to look like a retest of the 200 simple and a confirmation of a bounce, which to me looks really, 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 really good for continuation to see upside, which now makes me want to go down to our lower term timeframes right here. Let's actually put back on all of our beautiful and lovely and very efficacious major moving averages. And starting off with the 4 hours. So yesterday I did say that I would be looking for another sweep of the lows. We kind of got it. I was looking a little bit more down towards like 8,500-ish region, and then a bounce back up to 9,000. Now, what's actually changed here is that this bounce is obviously getting a little bit more, and has changed the very short term. As I said, if Bitcoin does retake 9,000 on at the very least a 2-hour dildo closure, which I think we already have. No, actually no. So okay, so yeah, it's actually still relevant to what we're looking at right now. But if Bitcoin, assuming that Bitcoin does confirm this next 4 hour diddle and 2 hour by that measure, because they're going to be closing at the same time essentially, or actually no, 35 minutes for the next 2 hour, 2.5 hours, and for the next 4 hour, I would be looking for extension to the top side of the short-term range, which is going to be right around 9,300ish region. Yes, I do have it right here. But overall, this is just shaping out to be another higher low on the lower term timeframes, also on the higher term timeframes as well, and shaping out to be what appears to be an ascending triangle, which is typically a bullish reaccumulation formation and does have a much higher likelihood chance to break out to the upside, statistically speaking. So looking at it like this, we can make a little bit of a measure move here. I mean, do you want to call it an ascending triangle? Do you want to call it a bullish box? At the end of the day, man, I've seen these things break every goddamn which way. What we can say though is that there is a measure move to be made off of this, and what do you know, it does actually align rather perfectly with our top side major long-term macro resistance, which really does change the higher term time frame picture. That's when, going back on over here to the open interest charts, that's when that really starts to be a major point of contention once again. If we see Bitcoin price action reach up there and major positions being added, damn good likelihood chance that we will actually be breaking it, and this is shaping up to be pretty damn good right here. Now, with that said, while I do think that this is lining up to be a little bit more short-term bullish, and we kind of already got that pullback from yesterday all the way down here to 8,500ish region. I do believe that this is actually a damn good way to be managing both for the upside and the downside, looking at this pivot point as the next pivot for an actual decent downside move. As long as Bitcoin price action remains above the low of yesterday, which is 85.27, even on just a tick basis. I don't need to see a close below there, but even just on a tick basis, I don't really see any real threat of a short-term downside move. However, if we do lose that area or close a 4 hour diddle, let's call it below like 86.50, either one of those does it. Although I think just waiting for a wick below this last low is probably a little bit better, just because there's a decent side move on top of that. I would look for extension all the way down to 7,900ish region. However, with the way that Bitcoin reacted from yesterday's bounce, and assuming that it does close this next one above 9,000, I don't think that that's very likely to happen. Of course, we'll look at probabilities a little bit later, but I do want to say at the outset that I would actually not be looking for that to happen. The upside a little bit more likely here, or at least I would imagine from a statistical narrative, on top of a formation narrative, on top of a trend narrative, on top of potentially even a momentum oscillator narrative, which let's see. 4 hour Stokes headed upwards and onwards, looking good there. Yes, we do have a couple of competing trend lines here, but oh Jesus, there's too many trend lines. Hold on, let's actually I do want to do a little bit of a deep dive into this, or maybe not so much of a deep dive, but there's a few interesting things here. Yes, we do have this trend line right here. Yes, so it is likely that we do get a little bit of a pushback right at the edge of the bullish control zone, which it naturally meets up at. However, the full picture is something like this, working on some sort of a falling channel within it. Now, I don't really trust formations on Stokes, as in the same way that I do on RSI. But assuming that this does kind of hold it up a little bit, I would be looking for that to overall be resolved to the upside. There's no measure move to be made on something like that, but it does align with a more sort of reaccumulation narrative from a momentum oscillator standpoint. You're essentially seeing a lost momentum to the downside as Bitcoin kind of prints in higher lows at the same time is what it's showing you. Anyways, on top of that, we do see 4 hour RSI popping back up as well, looking good there. I shouldn't say looking good, but not looking terrible. A little bit of hidden bullish divergence at the same time. I do believe that the easy move from that has already played out. So I don't, if I would have recorded this video like a couple hours earlier, which would be just too fucking early for me, that would be like 6:30 a.m. for myself. It's right now about 8:30. Probably could have caught that one, but looking like right now, it's just going to fill out the short-term time frame range. And do I think that it's going to break to the upside? It's looking likely, especially from the momentum oscillator standpoint, of which we have been contracting steadily on 4 hour historical volatility percentile as well. I do think that this is probably going to come down a little bit more, setting up for a breakout, very likely somewhere right around here, which is maybe a little bit later this week on the lower term time frame. So resolving that range essentially. Let's see if the ones below this kind of agree with this, and we see the 3 hour Stokes coming from the same area, basically the same setup as well. Actually, a little bit more orderly here too, which I think is good. 3 hour RSI doing the same thing. Looking okay. Looks like it wants to at least test the bullish control zone and see if we can hold in there. It looks like it probably will. 2 hour Stokes already up there, so we're going to be flailing around a little bit. I would imagine the hourlies are kind of flip-flopping around too. So technically all of them are kind of postured for a nice upwards cross here. But what price point do we need to maintain for that momentum to remain in that direction? And this is really the ideas that I've been postulating recently after receiving this amazing tool from Bali. And by the way, a lot of people have been asking, is this available? At some point, I do believe that Bali actually will make this available. At first, it'll probably be. I probably shouldn't get into it, but just if you think about sending me a PM asking if you can have access to this, that's not up to me. It's not. I do not own the code. I'm just lucky to be able to know Bali and be able to use it myself. He's a goddamn genius when it comes down to it, and all that work with him, that being Pig and perhaps a couple others. They are great, but at the end of the day, it's up to him, not me. So just a little bit of patience, and I'm sure that in maybe like another few weeks or something like that, we'll have something cool to announce. Anyways, so the upwards momentum remains on the 4-hour dodo time frame as long as Bitcoin price action is basically above the last prior low. So I really like that for a management, for a position management area. Again, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm sure people can kind of figure out what the fuck I'm doing by what I'm saying. So fair enough. And obviously protecting that last little higher low right there. So as long as we are above that area, the 4-hour momentum remains the upside. Let's see how the 3-hour looks from that perspective. Pretty much the same area, a little bit higher than that at 87.29. You can see 2-hour is technically still up right now as well, and it will remain to the upside as long as we are above 89.50ish region, and hourly is flip-flopping a little bit. It will cross it's technically up right now, although it'll cross to the downside with any sort of an hourly to close below 90.50. So the way that I look at that is that they are a little bit bifurcated here, but more than anything, the obvious thing is that we do have this higher low right here. Makes a nice little management point, and as long as we remain above there, is the short-term time frame look bullish? Yes, I would say so. And if we look at the medium-term time frames, I'd imagine that it's probably going to be somewhere around that $9,000 mark, and there you fucking go. So here's what I can say a little bit more full-heartedly or a little bit more directly. If Bitcoin does close this next 12-hour dildo, especially above 9,100 or even just above 9,000, I'm looking for another drive at the very least to 93, 9,400-ish region. So that's a $300, $400 move from where we are right now. So decent enough. But realistically, the next big move that I'd be looking for is for this range to be resolved with any sort of a 4-hour dildo closure above 9,200, which, by the way, would correlate quite well with that 12-hour. Now, wouldn't it? We could make a measure move all the way up here towards our 9,700 resistance, which outlines the major area from the macro perspective. That is the 618 Fibonacci retracement from the ultimate high to the ultimate low of this last cycle that we had from about 3,100 to 14,000. That is also our last major descending trend line coming in from the $14,000 high, connected with our last major high right here in early February. And then also it is a couple of important order blocks coming in from this breakdown in late February, and also this fake out that we had over here during the China news when during October, when whatever China was saying that made Bitcoin pumper, whatever the fucking narrative was. I think I was on a plane during that time as well. Looking at it from a weekly perspective, things look more or less good here. While I do still think that there could be a test down to about 7,900ish region, I do believe that would be a massive opportunity. And we'll kind of match up with the stock market in just a bit here, but it might have already been that we've already seen the downside for this week. As I've been saying, I was looking for downside to start off this week. Is 8,500 the extent to it, and did traditional markets see it down to like 280? We'll have to look at traditional markets on their own, but Bitcoin's looking like it could have very well been. However, like I said, if you see the 4-hour, or I should say, this is not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, but if I see the 4-hour even just close below 86.50 or wick below the current low at 85.27 on Mexico, I would be looking for that 7,900 tick to be met. Does it happen like that at the snap of a good old Martin's fingers? No, I don't know about that, but I would be looking for that next target to be hit, probably over the next few days or something like that, if that trigger was met. But until that trigger is met, this just looks like a consolidation at a higher level. And remember that the 12-hour golden cross has officially happened as of yesterday. And did we get our test down to the 21 exponential moving average? You could say that with yesterday's price action, yes. But now I'd just be looking for this to gain divergence away from each other as the cross strengthens. The next big thing that I'd be looking at as well is a 2-day, right? The 2-day, which I was postulating around the 2-day death cross right here. That actually is going to have one of those fake out signals, which is equally as powerful, but to the other side, obviously. And remember, I was looking for like a big downside move based off this, assuming that we were actually going to hold the 21 to to the downside. That's not happening right here. As long as we're above the 21, that's obviously not going to, I mean, as long as we're above the 200, it's not going to happen at all. But what's equally just as likely to happen right now is we're going to see a pretty damn powerful cross of 4 different moving averages. We have the 10 simple, the red 10 simple, we have the yellow 21, we have the green 55, and we have the purple 200, and even the 89's right there as well. So all of them are combined at about the same area. And you can imagine that if they were to all flip around into a bullish posture, meaning all lower periods above higher periods, as Bitcoin is essentially above the 200 simple moving average all at the same time, which they naturally will probably in the next tick or two, which one of them is coming tonight, and then the next one on, I guess, Thursday or Friday? No, Friday. Thursday, Friday, whatever. Sound like a fucking squirrel, man. That would be a damn good signal that we are going to see a pretty massive pump, at the very least to 5 digits, $10,000 is what I'm saying. And is that going to be good enough to actually break the top side macro resistance? Probably yes. So again, if you're in the TA program, make sure that you review the EMA module, because there's a lot included in there with regards to what to look for specifically for this sort of for this sort of cross. Anyways, going to the daily, I should talk about northern targets if and when we do get there. So if Bitcoin were to head up to this major macro level and actually take it out, on first pass it probably is going to push it back. I'd imagine that on first pass we probably do sell off from like 97 or 9800 back down to where we are right now, like low 9,000. But if, which I don't think that this is happening today, but if it were to close above, let's call it 9,800 to be a little more conservative here, I would look for extension. Let me get rid of this area actually. Not relevant to what we're looking at right now. I would look for extension at the very least pretty damn quickly to 10,500-ish region, our last major high on a weekly closing basis and a daily closing basis for that matter. This last major fake out that we had right here a few months ago in February of 2020, actually a couple months ago it looks like. And that is the next big macro area, because if Bitcoin actually does close a weekly above there, now we once again are in the talks of having a weekly uptrend. We would have a higher high. Technically speaking, we don't necessarily have a higher low just yet, so at some point we probably would come back down, scare the shit out of everyone, and instead of a higher low somewhere probably around the 21 on the weekly, wherever that ends up being around that time. But assuming that Bitcoin could actually close above 10,000, or I guess it's 10,000, on the weekly it's only 10,150 on Stamp, on a daily closing basis about 10.5. Whichever one happens first, the weekly obviously going to hold more weight, but I do think that the daily gets it. I would look for extension if that were to occur all the way up to 11,500. That's where the major macro areas really do start to change around as well, because we've had so many rejections around there from a longer time frame period. We do see, the January breakdown right here before like a 50% move from 12,000 to 6,000, double top right here before 12,000 again to 6,000, then a couple of tops being put in here in July and in August of 2019. So that area does hold a lot of weight historically speaking. Obviously the volume profile showing a major shift in behavior above there as well, just nothing doing. So it's, Bitcoin gets back above there, that's when we really can talk about 16,000 and 20,000 bucks again. And I mean, we'll get to that bridge when we cross it, but for right now, with the 21 crossing the upside of the 55 on the weekly, I'm not bearish off that. I'll put it that way. I'm actually quite bullish on this. I think at most Bitcoin comes back down to 7,900, and if that were to even happen, that would be a major buy, at least on the first pass. If Bitcoin does stall a little bit down there, then yeah, that could be a signal that we will come all the way back down to like 6,000 bucks or something like that. But that's just not looking likely right here, especially with the stock market being quite strong itself. Strong stock market seems to be doing pretty damn good for Bitcoin. Also considering that that's been the goddamn trend for the last 10 years. So you kind of want that to happen. So all the cryptocurrency moon boys looking for the death of traditional markets to help out Bitcoin. It's actually the other way around. You want traditional markets to do good, historically speaking, for Bitcoin. Okay, so let's go check out CMEs here. How are CMEs looking right now? CMEs looking pretty damn orderly as well, hanging out above the 200 simple as long as we're above there, which is 8,600, which is pretty much where the last local low was from yesterday's price action. So I'll actually move this alert up right there to yesterday's low. As you know, as long as we're above there, I do look for this to just kind of slowly but surely kind of crawl its way higher. It looks a lot more obviously bullish on CMEs, and this just kind of shaping out to be some sort of an ascending triangle, just basically an uptrend. You know, we have higher lows and higher highs. Like what's it's crazy, man. It's crazy. So I do think that we're probably going to see, you know, a 93 or 9400 tick today. I think that's quite likely, and I'd probably be looking for a pushback on the first test, and then if Bitcoin closes the 4-hour doodle, let's call it above 93, I'd look for overall extension to 97, 9800. So, you know, another, you know, short-term moves right there, but leading into the macro areas. And that is, I mean, I welcome that, especially when Bitcoin is, you know, giving you $400 moves on a short-term time. I mean, that's just fucking insane to me. It's just fucking insane. Anyways, I've already been recording this video for 20 minutes. Maybe I can even make this video on the shorter side. So let's go look at the expected moves chart. So I'll once again pull up this area right here. Now, remember, this blue box right here is only relevant to the short-term timeframes. I'd feel a lot more confident with saying 9,300. However, if we do close a 12-hour doodle above 9,200, I think that does it as well. So I'm going to look at both the, well, you know what? No. I'm going to stick with that because the 12-hour, it does seem to get things pretty damn well here. So we could actually even look at 9,000 as it is right now on a 4-hour doodle closure. That's a 55% chance that we actually do close above. And that one's coming in 2 hours and 19 minutes and 41 seconds. That probably does it for me, to be fair. But let's look at what would it take to close above 92 on the next 4-hour doodle, showing 20, almost 27%, pretty fucking good as well. I would say that would very likely do it for a test of the top side of the medium term range. So let's go now to let's now look at the conservative look. I mean, all of them are obviously astronomically higher than the downside probability. I'll even keep it at like 85.50, give it a little bit of life there. We can look at a 12-hour here, and I am on future, I believe. Yep, yes I am. And what are we looking at? Okay, so yes, 20.25% chance to close above it on the upside for 9,300. I think a 12-hour. I mean, I'm using 9,300 right now. That's a little bit. That's very conservative. I would say even above 9,150, 9,200. This blue box right here probably does it for another continuation drive up here, and that's pretty fucking high already. I'll use 9,200 now. That's going to be about 30%. I mean, this is dramatically higher than what we see for the downside probability target. Now, the downside probability target, we could, that's, to be fair, that is a little bit lofty to the downside. I could just as easily use 9,000, but that's only relevant to the short-term timeframes. If Bitcoin, and I can say this a little bit more directly as well, if Bitcoin closes this next 4-hour dildo, actually, it's not even below 9,000. It's below 8,900. If we do close below 8,900, I'd probably be looking for another potential higher low to be put in somewhere down around here. Although there wouldn't necessarily be a higher low at that point, but would get the lower term timeframes. Do people really care about that? I don't know. We can just look at it really quickly. Who cares, man? Why not? The TA nerds are only here at this point. We're past the 22-minute mark, and I know my analytics. No one fucking watches a video past 10 minutes, so we got rid of them already. So yes, actually, if we do use 8,900. Downside probability is a little bit higher than the upside target probability, but that doesn't really play out for too much of a move. I'd be looking for extension down to like 86 if that were to happen, but that doesn't imply further move than that. It's below 85.50 really that that next $500, $600 move is is implied to the downside. So I'm going to go back to 85.50, and let's actually I'll do even 8,600. I want to give it a little bit of a boost there, and we'll look at the daily as well. I want to go back to our charts over here. I just want to make sure, what would a daily look like at that price point? I mean, a daily anywhere above 9,000 looks good to me realistically, but especially above 9,200 looks very nice. So I'll keep it at 9,200 for now, and the probabilities for that is 36 1/3% for today's daily total closure, and versus 17.65% for the downside. And remember, that was like the very short, or actually no, that is the 8,600 level. So it is still within the realm of possibility. That double-digit percentage, it sounds small, but it's actually rather high. Obviously, in the 30s is astronomically high, but so the upside's still more likely here. Looking at the rings, we do see that they're kind of flattening out here. I don't really have a bias made off that, and I do want to check out the Trollinger bands here as well. Let's see how they're doing. Trollinger band showing topside resistance coming in around 9,400. So do we get a spike up here? Probably yeah. And I'd essentially even be like more aggressively bullish as long as Bitcoin's above 8,900 on a 4-hour closure. The next 12-hour closure anywhere above 9,150 to 9,200ish region. I'd be looking for at the very least a test to 93, 9,400ish region. But realistically, it's I do think it's setting up for a breakout to the upside, and we're going to test the top side of resistance of this whole structure here, and that's where the fun stuff can happen. But a lot of things coinciding in that region, so I would initially be looking for a pushback on there, and then setting up for potentially a nice move a little bit later. Let's go look at traditional markets as well. We can go. Someone's made the request to look at Nifty, the Indian kind of major Boris or major index. Which I'm not too familiar with it, so I do want to say that at the outset, I'm just taking my traditional market experience in U.S. equities to this. So for what it's worth, I do want to kind of preface the conversation by saying that looks toppy to me, but also looks short term, like it wants to test to the upside, probably back up towards 9,600. But overall, I do think that a nice medium term top is in it. Probably test to the downside over the next few weeks, probably back down to like 8,900. But let's see what U.S. markets are looking like, or futures are looking like after we look at Japan. Japan, same thing. Probably pops back up towards 20,000. But I do think that overall, it's going to reach for the downside. German markets closed down 3.5% yesterday. I think same thing here as well. Probably back up to like 10.6, 10.7, and then probably test some downside after that. Now let's go check out NAS futures. NAS futures, we said were likely to pop up yesterday, back up to this area right here. We have hit that target. Now the real question is, if Bitcoin breaks to the north side here, do I expect traditional markets to break to the north side as well? I mean, Bitcoin's looking more likely to do that. So I'd have to say, well, yeah. And what do you know? We have an uptrend here as well. It looks like kind of a sloppy ascending triangle with this as kind of an actionable point. So what I can say with traditional markets, I was looking for a pullback this week. I think I'm going to be wrong on this. The way that this has gotten reaccumulated so aggressively, I don't think it's appropriate to be bearish. Short term and medium term. Yes, I have been saying that the low is very likely in for traditional markets, but I also was saying that we probably are going to test some downside this week. I think it's very possible that we actually just saw that yesterday. And this, and just as here's the thing with this, just as we were looking in Bitcoin, the easy kind of target for downside continuation on NAS futures, and we'll look at SPY futures as well, is just taking out yesterday's low, which is right around 85.50. So if you do see price action back down around there and just even a few ticks below, I would look for extension down to our downside target still, 8,300. On NAS futures, and then probably ultimately like 79.50 for SPY futures. We'll look at the relevant levels in a second here, but so far so good, and I really like the daily for NAS futures. They're certainly leading the market, I do think. And I'd be looking at this as the next actionable point. So if we do get a 4-hour total closure above 89.50, I'd look for another retest of this high and probably beyond. I don't really see too much stopping you from actually not that level, but this level right here. I guess we already kind of hit that, to be fair. Maybe we move it up a little bit, maybe somewhere right around like 92.50, and then another big level right here at around the 9400-ish region. Looking at E-mini futures for SPY, we do see about the same thing. We hit the area that we were speaking about yesterday, bouncing up, which we did say was going to happen yesterday, but I think I'm changing around here where I don't think that this is going to turn into rejection here. The reason why I say that is because looking at all the momentum oscillators, the mommy oscillators and their chicken tendies heating up here. So I don't think that I should be bearish on this. No. So I think I'm going to be wrong about looking for further downside this week. I think it's very relevant that this could pop back up above here. And if you do see a 4-hour total closure, not even 4 hour, we can use an hourly and traditional. It's just as fine. Any sort of an hourly total closure, I would be more conservative with it. Back above 290, 291, it looks like. I'd look for a retest of the prior high and then likely beyond as well. Next major area from a macro standpoint on E-mini futures is, well, we got 300 is going to be a nice even number, but realistically, I don't see really much stopping you from about 310 to 313 region, of which we can go back to SPY over here. And yeah, looking like it's going to play a little bit more of a bounce. I imagine we're very likely to open up somewhere right around like 290, and then assuming that we get a little bit of continuation there and close, one of those timeframes that actually matters above that region, I would look for overall continuation. Yeah, probably up to like 310 region, something more like this. Somewhere right around 310 to 313 region. And same thing for the downside as well. If we do take out yesterday's low, which is 279 spot 14, I would be looking for extension at the very least down to last week's low, right around the 21st of April at 272 and 3/4. Probably another small bounce there, and then further continuation down to the targets that we mentioned earlier this week, or sorry, yesterday, I guess it was. So there you go. Other than that, it's looking like it's gonna have a chance here. So I do think that it's relevant to reassess my look from yesterday, and I wouldn't necessarily be looking for rejection here on the first pass. I do think that, I do think that if Bitcoin's kind of shaping up to be a little more on the bullish side, especially from a fiscal standpoint, we're probably going to see traditional markets, mirror that. In fact, they're probably going to lead it. So sometime around traditional markets open today at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, we should see that move if it is going to happen. It would probably happen somewhere right around there in that first hour. So stay tuned, because I think today could be a nice and fun day. Now, of course, while I have been saying that, I'm a little bit more angled towards the upside here. Like I said, if we do take out yesterday's low, I would be looking for extension down here, another $600, $700. So very, very relevant, almost 10% move. To this area, probably another bounce here, and then if this area breaks, then we got some new to talk about for the long term. Maybe a big reversal back down to 6,000, but that doesn't really look very likely or very relevant to the current picture. So with that said, I'm going to be signing off. I want to wish you well, and until next time, take care.